Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Zero Strain, a shoot 'em up with MOBA-inspired combat. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Kyle Maris and published by East Asia Soft, Zero Strain released in mid-August for the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One. It's a title that looks and almost feels like it should be a twin-stick shooter, but unfortunately it's not, and that one little problem there really ruins this title for me. It's got a lot of interesting ideas going for it. It has tons of ships and the collectibles that you can build up over time, but just the control scheme itself really does spoil it for me. So starting up the game, as we start, we are taken to our main menu. So there's a little story involved here where you've got like an anime character who almost feels out of place with the rest of the game, Laria, who's telling you about this station, and our primary objective is we're piloting these catalysts, these ships, into these dimensions to collect light echoes to power this station. So now that we have the story out of the way, you've got two options here. We have our destinations, which are our missions, and the part that I was talking about with making new ships, we've got this essence reactor. So as you're playing through stages, you'll get these catalyst crystals, and you come in here to unlock additional ships if you have enough energy in your station. At this point I don't have any to unlock, but that's where you accomplish that, and it's a pretty neat little idea. Here in the destinations, these are our missions. There are 3 mission types present in the game: the Descent, the Protect, and the Bosses. And as you go through these stages with the different ships you'll unlock, you get those light echoes I was talking about, powering up the station and being able to reach further and further destinations, all the way up to and including the boss of the game, the Boundary, which is out of range. You need 45 power for it, and I've put a little bit of time into this game at this point. I'm only at 19 power, so it would take quite a bit of effort to get there. So how do we get these light crystals? Well, selecting a mission, we're taken to our catalyst select. So when you begin the game, you'll only have the one catalyst, the Crystal Viper. But as time progresses, you'll find and unlock additional catalysts. And for one thing, these ships look really neat. I do like the visual presentation of the ships in particular. Admittedly, they are kind of dark, but I take a look at this one here, the Quantum Alchemist. Doesn't that look awesome and just really inspire you? Another really interesting and unique feature about the ships is each one has a passive ability and 3 special weapons, and they're all unique. So you can see here they're even like a little bit of description, although the text might be small enough that depending you might have a hard time reading it. So the passive for the Crystal Viper, which is your default ship and the one I'll show you the stage in, is Survival Instinct. Recover energy when shield is broken. The weapon, then you've got your 3 sub-weapons. So Triple Seeker, basically homing missiles. Weapon 2 is a Shock Venom, so it basically applies damage, or rather maybe a defense debuff is the best way to look at it, to the enemies it hits. And then Resonant Flash, which is basically a bomb that explodes from your ship. So selecting our catalyst, we're select ready to launch. We get this really neat flashy launch sequence as we fire ourselves into this dimension we're visiting. Between, like, let's see, load, we get a little bit of, I guess a hint is a good way to say, or no, not a hint, tip about our ship. So here we are in the game, and as you can see, you can move around controlling with the left stick, and you'll point the direction you're facing until you lock onto an enemy. And unfortunately, you have no control over what you lock on. It just happens to be an enemy in the direction you're facing. Once you begin firing, which it's on the Nintendo Switch is accomplished with the Y button, you'll be locked on that enemy until that enemy is destroyed, or you release your fire to select a different enemy. It's very, very difficult to select an enemy out of a mob that you might want to target. there is an energy meter on the left of the screen. You use energy for two things: your shot, as well as our boost. So we have a boost, which just acts as like a little, well, a dodge, and it also has the benefit of collecting weapon charge crystals that enemies drop as they're defeated. Also, enemies like this one that lock onto us, we can break the lock by boosting. However, there is a problem to boosting. So you might have noticed, if I go off the edge of the stages, I take damage. You have to be very careful with how you're moving about the stage if you don't want to die. So those are the basics of our movement and our base shot. So as I mentioned, each weapon, or each catalyst, has 3 special weapons, and they're charged up through your actions of firing, in addition to collecting up these like little square indicators with circles to power up our special weapons. So the first special weapon, the Seeker, for the Crystal Viper, is this homing missile. That's kind of a little bit hard to see, and that's one problem that I feel Zero Strain has, is it actually gets to the point where it's very, very difficult to tell what's going on. The game self-describes itself as being a frenetic shoot-'em-up, and it's very true, although not necessarily in a good way. Things get really hectic, and in like certain situations, it just really hurts the gameplay. So this is one section that I find it's very, very difficult to deal with that auto lock-on, where you've got like gaps in the ground. You want to be able to target certain things from a distance, but like sometimes you just can't get a lock on what you're looking to target. It's very, very frustrating. So I've even given this a lot of thought as to how you could even fix this problem, and I'll go over that in just a little bit. So we're decently far through the stage itself. You can actually see, as you look down, our destination is 2 or 3 layers below where we're currently at. Oh, so one thing I have not talked about. So we have a health bar that's above our ship. In addition to that health bar, we also have a little shield meter. That shield meter is over to the right of our green health bar. So one thing that you can do to make things a little bit easier, as you collect crystals, deal damage, use special weapons, we're charging up what is called the Syncro Burst. When that, which is a little meter right above our special weapon meter that I failed to indicate on the bottom of the screen there. When that meter fills up to 100%, we get an awesome little Synchro Burst, which does 2 things. It deals damage in the immediate vicinity of our ship, as well as heals us. So it's actually very important to try and build that up to help survive in the game. And in certain situations, in certain fights, it's a lot easier to build up. Let's see if we can take this. I do believe... Oh, we've done it. We've got to do our bottom section, and bam, that's the end of the first descent stage. So, there you have it. That's the basics for Zero Strain. There is a brief tutorial you go through at the beginning of the game. Unfortunately, it's with the Crystal Viper. So you kind of learn how to use the default ship, but all the other ships are only really described in or their special weapons are only described, and in some cases I've had a really hard time figuring out how in the heck am I even supposed to use this ship. So some are relatively straightforward. The Spellforce Wyvern is a little trickier to use. The Obsidian War Castle is actually very straightforward. It's just a heavy ship, so its movement is slower. It has higher shields, higher HP, and its weapons are relatively easy to understand. So I actually quite like the Obsidian War Castle for how straightforward it is. But some of the other ships, like the Nightblade, you're basically like this ninja fighter craft, and you deal like squat for damage. It can be quite frustrating, as fights that should be rather short just end up being way too long. And then the Quantum Alchemist, as awesome as the ship looks, I have no idea how you're supposed to use all the orbs that it sends out. So for this boss fight, I'll use the Obsidian War Castle to show you how a boss fight in this game works. The other mode is Protect, and as you might assume, you have a target in the middle of the stage you're trying to protect from all these enemies that are incoming, which would be easy if this game was a twin-stick shooter, but where it's not, and you've got this bizarre lock-on mechanism, it becomes kind of an exercise in frustration. Although this boss here, I think, is a perfect example to show how frustrating it can be to have lock-on. Not so much in the earlier parts of the fight, but in the later parts of the fight where you have multiple of these like circles moving around the stage. You can see there like that my lock-on had a hard time like targeting the boss. I don't want to target these orbs. It's nice to get them out of the way, but my target is the boss ship, and I'm not targeting it. Just leading to a lot of frustration, and it's just like this game could be one that I could love if it wasn't for the control scheme. So how would I fix the control scheme? So the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch basically have the same button layout, so this could work for any of them. The way you use the special weapons is you hold down left trigger, then you press face button on the controller to use your special weapon. Rather than doing that, why not set things to all the special weapons to a different shoulder button? There's enough of them there. You could have one special weapon be the left trigger, one special weapon be left bump, and then like a right bump. And you can use all the weapons and still be able to control everything. And instead of like having your main shot take energy, you can just simply have it be a standard twin stick shoot 'em up where you're firing your weapon from the right stick, and even being able to fire in multiple directions, or at least like keep your targeting from getting to be a mess. Like here, I'm trying to target the boss, but it's locking on to all those orbs circling around it. It just is frustrating. So minus flavors, the controls and specifically the auto lock-on just make this game so frustrating. It's one that I want to love, but because of that, I just simply can't. And then there's also the problem that the view is too far out, and sometimes things just get too hectic, too frenetic for it to be easily understood what in the heck is even going on. And the difficulty of figuring out how best to use the ships isn't aided by that crazy way that things are. But what do I love about this game? What are the plus flavors? Well, I do like the ship design quite a bit, and that's the other part, is the collecting and the unlocking of the ships is something that I think is great. At this point, I've already unlocked 5 ships, and I don't even know how many there are. I would love to see that, but unfortunately, I don't want to deal with the frustration of the controls to stick with it long enough to see what this game has to offer. So there you have it. Zero Strain served up for your enjoyment. Ultimately, it's one that I wanted to enjoy the flavor, but at the end of the day, it just came across as something that was not for my palate. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.